Episode 2 of Dark Beginnings is finally here, and just like my last video, I'm here to discuss and analyze it. Thank you to everyone who watched my last video, and if you're somehow seeing this one first, then that's okay. This episode kinda invalidated a few of my thoughts from episode 1, but I'll elaborate on that later. Well, let's get right into SonicXShadowGenerations Dark Beginnings, Finding the Way. Once again, the story starts with the events from 50 years ago, although this time the memory isn't interrupted by Black Doom. We start by following Maria walking through the Ark, and just as she enters a room, she actually gets cut off by none other than the gun commander from Shadow the Hedgehog. As he runs away, he yells to get that freak away from him, obviously talking about Shadow. It makes sense he's here. From Shadow the Hedgehog, we could see that he actually grew up on the Ark and was childhood friends with Maria. But it is still pretty shocking to see him animated in 2024, especially with his large bug eyes. What's more, we even get an official name for him, which is Abe. This name actually originates from Archie Sonic, where his full name was Abraham Tower, and with Ian Flynn heading the story, I can only imagine this was an intentional effort to canonize that name. Although Maria only says Abe, it's pretty safe to bet that the gun commander's official name is now Abraham Tower. A piece of lore like this is kinda unexpected to get this late in the franchise, but it's very welcome. I just love all the attention that the Shadow game is getting after being shunned for so long. Anyway, we don't get to know what happened between Shadow and Abe here, but clearly it has something to do with the alien that Shadow's looking at through his tube, which is actually one of the death leeches from Shadow's game. Abe is very clearly traumatized from when he saw Shadow awakening with Gerald and Black Doom nearby, and I think the trauma goes on to cement his hatred for Shadow and is why he puts so much blame on him in Shadow the Hedgehog. This hatred for him clearly does affect Shadow, as we can see he's just staring at this creature from the tube. That is until Maria interrupts his brooding. And here we get another heartwarming interaction with Maria, which possibly provides even more context to Shadow's characterization over the years. When Maria asks him if he's alright, he goes on to explain how he knows he was made with DNA from the Black Arms, and we even get this beautiful shot as everything in the room fades out beside Shadow and the Death Leech, with him explaining that no matter what he looks like on the outside, inside he is the same as this alien creature.
Created me using alien DNA. The Black Arms, he called them. The same DNA as this larva. This ugly, heartless creature. I may look like a hedgehog, but I'm really no different than this thing.
This shot and Shadow's words here are so powerful. When he calls the Death Leech ugly and disgusting, I think he's echoing the words of people on the Ark like Abe. And that just makes him feel like all he is just a disgusting and ugly alien. Which makes him feel even more alone, and the shot isolating him and the Death Leech really emphasizes that. That is, until Maria is there to hug him as always, which brings him out of the darkness and lights up the whole shot. She tells him what you do is what defines you, and while he doesn't really truly learn this lesson until the ending of SA2, it's clear that Maria's words do bring comfort to him in this moment. She's the only one in his life who is encouraging him to be who he wants to be, not what he was made for. Maria's the only one he's willing to trust because she was the first person to view him as a person and not a tool. I think we finally get a glimpse at what they're trying to do with Shadow all this time. His past does still haunt him, and it's clear that he's still traumatized and isn't willing to let people in again. I think that context adds so much more to him. They're trying to show that the reason he wasn't allowed to view Team Dark as his friends is possibly because of this trauma. Even if that wasn't always the intention behind the Shadow mandates, I think now Ian Flynn is just trying to make sense of everything, and this is a good way to go about it. Then, the scene ends with Maria saying that he will be able to find more people he can trust. And on that, we cut to Shadow raiding one of Eggman's bases, where we get a Team Dark appearance. It's really obvious what they're trying to say here, and it's really satisfying to see them be able to build up Shadow's relationship with Team Dark again. It makes you want to root for Shadow, to believe that he can accept Team Dark as friends and they're people he can trust and let in again. And I really hope we keep exploring that either in episode 3 or even in the game. Anyway, as he breaks in, he comes face to face with a few eggplants, specifically the samurai ones from Aquarium Park and Sonic Colors, but We will talk about what that means later. We got this pretty amazing sequence with Shadow destroying them without even breaking a sweat, which is kind of reminiscent of the Sonic Unleashed opening to me. And while fighting, he hears Omega, who is actually fighting some egg pawns himself, which is then followed in by Rouge, who sweeps in to save Shadow from an egg pawn attacking from behind. We get a pretty fun sequence of Rouge and Shadow talking while fighting, and Rouge is actually surprised to see him here. Rouge explains that she's actually here gathering intel for Gun, and Omega's her backup. It really just is so great to see Omega and Rouge again, and Rouge especially is animated so well, like really emphasizing the kicks in her fighting style, just like SA2. When it comes to their voice acting, Roger Craig Smith does pretty well on Omega, and I'm not the biggest fan of Rouge's voice actor for many reasons, but she does pretty well in this episode, for the most part at least. Definitely better than how she sounded in Dream Team.
What does that even mean?
Anyway, Rouge asks Shadow why he's here, and he tells her that he's looking for a ship because he believes the Black Arms have returned. Rouge doesn't give a reaction to this, which is a little puzzling, but I'm sure they'll talk about it more in episode 3. Rouge breaks the news that there isn't a ship here, as now it's just being used as a supply depot. It makes sense that Shadow came to Pyramid Cave to see if there's a ship there, but it looks like that ship in SA2 was the only one. And then the team gets ambushed, and Shadow notices just in time, and he goes to save Rouge, just like old times. And then my personal favorite part of the episode, we finally get to see Team Dark together taking down the Egg Breaker from Shadow the Hedgehog. But yet again, we get such a well-animated sequence of Team Dark taking this thing down together. Omega uses his firepower to break its leg and knock it down, while Rouge swoops up to deliver a deadly kick to cut off his arm, and then Shadow gets to be the one to finish it off. I love seeing Team Dark, and I just hope that in the future we get to see them together more. Shadow being willing to just let them in more and over time grow closer to them is honestly just peak writing. And after that's all taken care of, we get to probably the biggest revelation of the series so far, and something that nulls a lot of points from the previous video. Rouge actually tells Shadow that she can get him to a ship by raiding a gun base with her, but that in return he has to promise to come to Sonic's birthday party. Not only is this a great character moment, with Rouge coaxing Shadow into socializing, and also double-crossing Gun is just very much like her spy nature, but also this line kind of confirms that this series and the game as a whole don't take place post-Frontiers like I thought. This is actually after Colors, which is interesting. It makes sense, but I think a lot of us thought from the previous episode that this was a post-Frontiers Shadow going back in time to experience Generations. And even though that had a lot of problems if you thought about it too hard, I thought they'd, explain it during the game. But with Rouge making Shadow promise to go, it gives a pretty good reason as to why Shadow stayed for his party during the ending of Generations. Side note, look at this guy in the Gen's ending, bro. He just went through the craziest experience of his life, and he's just here brooding alone at the corner of the party. Anyway, honestly, this revelation brings me even more questions. At the Summer Games Fest trailer for Shadow Gens, we see a glimpse of the scene with Shadow encountering the Time Eater, possibly even at the Ark. I'm assuming this is when he gets sucked into white space, but we know Omega and Rouge went with him to the gun base, and in the first cutscene of Gens, Rouge is at Sonic's party. I guess this could mean that either Shadow went to the Ark alone, or he went with Omega to the Ark, but I don't understand why Rouge wouldn't go to the Ark with Shadow to investigate something as serious as the Black Arms returning. That is honestly my biggest question for episode 3, and I'm pretty excited to watch it and talk about it more next week. Well, that's really all I had to say about this episode. It was pretty great. The only thing that I can really critique about both episodes so far is that I really wish they were longer, but with the time and budget they were given, the entire team is really making something special here, and I can't wait to see episode 3 already. Anyway, I think that'll do it for this video. This video probably came out a bit shorter because the episode is shorter and it was kind of more action heavy, and I'm not too great at describing action other than, wow, this looks really cool. But if you did still enjoy the video, please leave a like and let me know your favorite part of the episode. Thank you all for watching.